Hi everyone, this is Jim Tolles. I'm a spiritual teacher and I write regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. I recently had an email about grieving the loss of a loved one, and I thought this was an important topic to spend a little bit of time on. Oftentimes people come to the spiritual path and they're looking for solace. And in truth, it's one of the best paths to go to for solace, to find that space where we can grieve and we can come to peace. And coming to peace doesn't mean that we're going to avoid difficult emotions. In the message that I got, it was concerning the loss of a child. And while we have many ideas about how things should work in life, this is one where we have potentially more ideas because it's the hope of every parent that they'll go before their children go, and that their children can have rich, full lives. And when they don't, and when they pass on to the other world before that, this is a very difficult thing. And it definitely goes against all the social conditioning that says, this shouldn't happen, which is usually where we have to spend the most time. And we have to spend that most time saying, this is what happened. With any difficult situation, this is where we have to go. We have to go into the space of acceptance. Because when the mind continues to resist, the pain will persist. And I didn't mean to make that rhyme up as I go and I talk about a very serious subject, but it's very true. Where we resist things, they're persisting. Because we're still putting that energy to say, no, no, this couldn't happen. And as I said, it doesn't matter what the difficult situation is, whether it's a lost job, the loss of a pet. I know many of you are very close to your pets and your animal companions. And some of them, like seeing eye dogs, providing immense services to their masters. And so in this way, when you lose somebody like that, they're still very, very dear to you. And we go through a grieving process. And the grieving process is just another way of saying letting go. And so there's a phase where we have to acknowledge, right? We accept what's arisen. We accept the difficulty of what we're feeling. And then the next phase is going to embrace it. And embrace it simply means honoring that it's there in whatever way you need to honor it. So for some people, it'll be about creating ritual. I mean, that's what a funeral really is. It's a ritual of saying goodbye. And so we go into that space and we say goodbye. And of course, the rituals really help for the body to understand something is different. The body works in the physical world, but the heart has its own emotional timing. And so this is a way where like grieving will probably go on multiple levels for most of you, especially with something as difficult as losing a child. And so the mind will have to grieve in its own way, coming into terms of acceptance, saying this is what's happened, I can move on. And then the heart will go through its own process of grieving. And there's no timeline that you can put on it. All we can do is not resist. A couple of years ago when I lost my grandfather, the grieving process was fairly easy for me. But there were definitely times, and it wasn't during the funeral that we had in the service, but there were just definitely times where suddenly there was kind of that wash of sadness, and it was like, and I would just kind of breathe in, and I could feel like I was out of sorts, for a little bit, and I would just be like, okay, so I'm going to sit with it. This is my grieving process. This is what it feels like right now. And I would just kind of breathe into it and be with it and allow it. And while it wasn't really a lot of crying for me in that particular instance, it was still its own grieving process. And so I think it's important to mention this because I want you to understand that the grieving can look in a lot of different ways. For some people, it will be the natural, crying, letting go of tears, and that's perfectly beautiful, perfectly okay. For others, it'll be very different because everyone expresses grief and the process of letting go of loved ones in different ways. And especially, if you're two parents, two parents are going to express grief differently. And you can't really project your own idea of what the other should be feeling or how they should be engaging with their grief. And I think that's really, really important, especially, when two parents have lost a child, because that's so traumatic. There's so much energy and love and intention have been placed in the raising of a child. And then when you lose a child, both parents can be very devastated. And all you can really do is be there for each other while you also have your own process. And of course, the more traumatic something is, and it's a difficult thing to say because a lot of trauma is also the way we're attached to things. So this is also a space where greater freedom becomes possible. Greater freedom from ideas about how life should work, about the process of life, about what a successful life looks like. I mean, you're going to find in this grieving process, especially the more difficult it is for you, you're going to find a lot of attachments. And so in this way, it starts to metamorphosize. The more awareness you can bring to it about what's being grieved, the more you can let go of things on a very deep and profound level that can open you to greater acceptance and greater service to yourself and to life. And what that looks like for you, I can't say. But what I can say is that all of this can be healed. All of this can be let go. A normal life, and normally, loosely said, is very possible, right? To return to it, and to return to it in a new way. So I also encourage you to see grief, the loss of a loved one, as the potential for a personal evolution, to step into a deeper experience and loving of yourself, of life, and of the mysteries and how they unfold. And depending where you are, this may be very difficult to hear, and I understand that. But I simply want to allow this idea to take root, to plant it out there, that where the ego may see only death, and that things are not working the way that you'd hoped, that this can melt, that this can be let go of. And in letting go of that, there can be greater spaciousness inside of you to embrace life as it is, because we don't know how long any of us are going to last here. We simply do not. And any myths we have about ourselves or anybody else don't serve us. And in letting go of those myths, we also start to let go of what do we call the sin of waiting for the future. This is the way we wait for something else to happen. We wait for another time to do something, to be ourselves, and there's no time to be ourselves in right now. And so this is another way where we can metamorphosize deep pain and deep tragedy and deep grief to say, I have to be me now. There's no other time. There's no time to wait. I have no idea how much longer I'll have on this planet or anybody else. Now, this is why, you hear a lot of people after grief will say, if there's somebody in your life you need to tell that you love them, tell them that you love them. If there's something you need to do, then do it. There's no time to wait. And I think this is one of the best lessons you can ever get out of losing a child, losing anyone in your life. Because we're all going to pass over into the next world. It is simply the way it is in this world. But use it as a way to inspire you to really and truly embrace life, to really truly find out who you are, what love means to you, and to follow that love, because there's simply no time to wait. So I hope this can offer some level of understanding and ease if you're coming to this video in a time of grief. You have my deepest condolences and sympathies, and I'm sending you much love. Once again, my name is Jim Tolles, and I hope you have a beautiful day.